We are introduced to the Smith family: Father Richard, Mother Susan, teenage daughter Jessie, and son Sam. On the surface, they appear to be a quintessential modern British family. Richard exudes a bumbling yet caring persona, while Susan balances practicality with curiosity. Their teenage children, Jessie and Sam, alternate between typical teenage apathy and occasional sharp wit. While the parents seem more grounded, Jessie and Sam, like many teenagers, wear their disinterest in the world around them as a badge of honor. Together, they embark on what seems like an ordinary vacation, but their journey will lead them into an extraordinary nightmare. The story begins as the Smiths make a stop at a coastal restaurant, a quaint spot with an eerie stillness that sets the tone for what lies ahead. Here, they plan to buy tickets for a ferry to a secluded, mysterious island. From the moment they step inside, an uneasy atmosphere permeates the air. The restaurateur and his wife, initially friendly, freeze when they hear the family's intended destination. Their expressions shift to alarm, and in hushed voices they warn the Smiths against traveling to the island during Quarantine, a time marked as forbidden. This strange warning doesn't deter the Smiths. However, their unease grows when they encounter similar resistance from the ferry conductor. Her hesitant demeanor and cryptic remarks amplify their curiosity, while the vacant, almost lifeless stares of the other ferry passengers send chills down their spines. By the time the ferry docks, the family's excitement is dampened by a creeping sense of foreboding. As the Smiths step onto the island, they are met with an unsettling sight. The entire community, led by the Svaltan elder Klara, stands at the shore. But their gathering is far from welcoming. Klara's piercing gaze and stern demeanor convey a clear message: the Smiths are not wanted here. The islanders' hostility is palpable, and their whispers create an atmosphere thick with tension. Susan, however, refuses to back down. Her determination to visit the island stems from a deeply personal curiosity. Her ancestor was one of the British soldiers involved in a historic massacre, a dark chapter memorialized in the island's Quarantine play. Susan's resolve clashes with the islanders' stern warnings, creating a tense standoff. Just as the situation threatens to spiral out of control, Mats Larsson, the owner of the B&B where the Smiths have booked their stay, intervenes. Mats, a man with an unkempt appearance and unsettling demeanor, insists that the Smiths follow him to their accommodation. His defiance of the community's wishes is met with glares and muttered protests, hinting at strained relations. Despite the tension, Mats's authority seems to carry enough weight to diffuse the immediate conflict. The Smiths arrive at the duplex cottage, which, at first glance, appears warm and inviting. The rustic furnishings and cozy interior provide a stark contrast to the ominous vibe outside, but it doesn't take long for unease to seep into their sanctuary. Mats's behavior, though outwardly polite, becomes increasingly unnerving. His overly attentive attitude toward Jessie, in particular, sends subtle warning signals. While the family is mildly perturbed by Mats's revelation that his mother was beheaded in the house, they brush it off, attributing it to local folklore or eccentricity. Jessie, however, begins to sense that something is wrong. While taking a bath, she hears faint voices that seem to emanate from behind the full-length mirror in her room. Her growing discomfort is matched by the oddities surrounding the house: strange noises, fleeting shadows, and the constant feeling of being watched. The tension escalates that night. Richard and Susan are awakened by the flickering light of torches outside their cottage. Venturing out cautiously, they are confronted by a chilling sight. A group of islanders gathered in the courtyard, their faces obscured by shadows. Without a word, they leave the carcass of a raccoon on the doorstep, a grotesque and symbolic gesture. The Smiths are shaken, particularly Richard, whose attempts to comfort Susan reveal a hint of past experiences that he'd rather not discuss. The next day, the family tries to go about their plans, but the island's hostility becomes impossible to ignore. As Richard and Susan take a stroll, they notice the islanders watching their every move, their stares unblinking and cold. The sight of boats arriving from the mainland, carrying coffins marked English sailors, only adds to the island's grim and mysterious aura. Meanwhile, Jessie and Sam venture out for breakfast, hoping for a semblance of normalcy. Instead, they are met with outright hostility. The villagers' disdainful glances and rude remarks force the siblings to leave in frustration. Their attempts to stand their ground are met with eerie laughter from masked islanders who seem to revel in their discomfort. To make matters worse, the siblings witness a procession carrying another coffin, this one marked with unsettling precision. Back at the cottage, Jessie's unease turns to dread when she discovers her bed in disarray. Unknown to her, Mats had been there, dressed in her missing lingerie, indulging his perverse tendencies. Though she suspects her brother at first, Jessie soon realizes the truth. Instead of succumbing to fear, she confronts the mirror in her room. Drawing a heart on its surface, she sends a provocative message to her unseen watcher, asserting a bold defiance. The narrative shifts focus to Klara, the enigmatic leader of the Svalta community. For Klara, Karantan is more than a ritual. It is a deeply ingrained tradition that defines the island's identity. Despite resistance from the younger generation, who balk at the ritual's more gruesome aspects, Klara is determined to uphold the old ways. Her unwavering commitment to human sacrifices, once a cornerstone of the tradition, pushes her to manipulate those around her. Klara's ultimate pawn is Mats. Aware of his perverse inclinations and the secret tunnels connecting his house to the cottage, Klara exploits his vulnerabilities. She knows about the hidden CCTV cameras Mats uses to spy on his guests and family, but she turns a blind eye in exchange for his loyalty. Now she demands that he drug the Smiths, giving him free rein to satisfy his twisted desires while ensuring their bodies are delivered as offerings to the community. Mats, both fearful and entranced by Klara's authority, agrees, setting the stage for the horrors to come. As Karantan begins, Mats puts his plan into motion. With sinister determination, he bakes biscuits laced with drugs, carefully packaging them as a welcome gift. When he arrives at the Smith's cottage, he's slightly thrown off to find it empty. The family has gone to the beach. Still, he leaves the biscuits on the table, a dark smile crossing his face. When the Smiths return and discover the biscuits, they exchange knowing glances but play along. As evening falls, Matt sneaks back into the cottage, expecting to find the family unconscious. The scene is eerily quiet, with only the sound of his footsteps on the wooden floor. He checks on Jessie first, her still form in bed, convincing him his plan has succeeded. But then, the twist is revealed. The Smith family is not unconscious. They faked eating the biscuits, their long game now coming into focus. The Smiths are not the victims, they are the predators. A family of seasoned serial killers, they've come to the island for what they gleefully call a slaycation. The reveal begins subtly. Jessie's eyes snap open as Mats leans over her. In an instant, she attacks, subduing him with ease. The rest of the family emerges from the shadows, their eerie calm contrasting with Mats's panicked pleas. They proceed to kill Mats in a calculated and gruesome manner, dismembering him with the same cold efficiency that has defined their previous exploits. The Smiths' horrifying true nature becomes apparent through flashbacks woven into the present. The restaurant's eerie stillness and the beheaded swan at the ferry, both were the Smiths' doing. Richard's stained jacket was no accident but the result of killing the restaurateur and his family during a brief return for his forgotten purse. The Smiths didn't come to the island by chance. They chose this island for its isolation, perfect for their twisted vacation plans. With Mats out of the way, the Smiths escalate their reign of terror. They begin targeting the villagers, starting with those who resisted their arrival. Richard and Susan take the lead, while Jessie and Sam, hungry for excitement, break into the communications center to cut off any calls for help. The island's remote nature, once a barrier for outsiders, now becomes a trap for its residents. Klara, determined to protect her community, rallies the remaining villagers. But as the bodies pile up, her control begins to waver. Klara's belief in the traditions of Karantan is both her strength and her downfall. She sees the Smiths as a test from the island's gods, refusing to abandon the ritual even as her people beg her to flee. Amid the chaos, the Smiths' internal dynamics come into sharper focus. During a brief pause in the carnage, Richard confronts Sam over his growing disrespect. In a shocking moment of rage, Richard stabs Sam in the neck, revealing that Sam was never truly part of the family, but a hired serial killer. Jessie and Susan barely react, their nonchalance highlighting the family's warped sense of morality. The Smiths' spree comes to a head when Klara and her son confront them at Mats's cottage. Klara, armed with knowledge from the CCTV footage, believes she has the upper hand. She ambushes Jessie, shooting her in the chest. But Jessie, though wounded, manages to deceive Klara, spinning a story about Mats betraying both the villagers and her family. Meanwhile, Klara's son ventures upstairs, unaware of Richard lying in wait. In the ensuing struggle, Richard fatally slashes the young man's throat, but not before a shotgun blast blows off Richard's arm. Screaming in agony, Richard stumbles back downstairs, blood pouring from the jagged stump. The remaining Smiths regroup, their injuries making their nonchalance all the more unsettling. They decide that deception is no longer necessary. Klara, consumed by rage, charges at them with a knife, determined to finish what she started. But before she can strike, a shot rings out. The detective from the mainland, alerted by cryptic reports of violence, has arrived. Misinterpreting the scene, he believes Klara is attacking innocent tourists. As Klara collapses, fatally shot, the Smiths immediately put on their facade of innocence. Susan sobs convincingly, while Richard, despite his grievous injury, thanks the detective for saving their lives. Their act is flawless, and the detective, already biased against the island's strange customs, doesn't question their story. The Smiths, battered and bloodied, board the detective's speedboat, feigning gratitude and relief. As the island fades into the distance, the family shares a darkly humorous exchange, their bond stronger than ever. Despite their injuries and Richard's missing hand, they laugh about their perfect vacation, already planning their next destination.